Episode 57 of the Parenting in My Pocket live Q&A. Hope you have all been keeping well. It is Wednesday, the 16th of February. 16th of February. I can't believe where this year is going, but it's probably the same as last year as well. It just kind of flies by pretty quick. So I hope everyone's been doing well. We've had a lot of new clients coming on board in the last week, and a lot of people inquiring about looking for help and support. And I think a lot of that is to do with people's ability to handle the stresses and strains and challenges that we're all experiencing. And it's I wish I could send a blanket over everyone and give them the skills to be able to manage things individually, but such is life, that can't happen. But we got to try and find our own little ways to manage the lives that we have as best as we can, and understand that there's always ups and downs. And I think for a lot of the people that have a lot of my new clients, what they're experiencing is that their reaction to something not going the way they hoped, or something not nice happening, far outweighs the a realistic response. So it's a case of, you know, I stub my toe and I do climb back into the bed because I can't cope with life anymore. And that seems to be a lot of the time, and that's quite a a nothing thing to talk with, but it's the equivalent of that. We go from I stub my toe to I cannot cope with life, just like that. And then what happens is, after the fact, a lot of people are going, my God, why did I react like that? It was a complete and utter overreaction to actually what was happening to me. And then they can start to get into self-criticism. So for any of you out there, if you're finding that your reactions to things not going the way you'd hoped are to the point of making you feel uncomfortable or making you feel so upset, then maybe it's time to look to get some support and some help, because we all sometimes need someone to be with us while we navigate through things. And it's why I love coaching so much, because with coaching, I don't do things for people. But what I try to do is give them the skills so that they can do things for themselves. But I go alongside them as they practice those skills to try and learn new ways of dealing with things, so that they just don't go quite to the same height where they're climbing under the covers and not coming out. So if you're experiencing that, please do reach out to somebody, not necessarily me, anyone that works in the field that you think might be able to help you navigate the waters. And sometimes we will dip in and out, and that's okay too. So what else has been going on? That's been taking up a lot of time. Yeah, working on a book with a logo synthesis colleague of mine for teenagers and young people. I might have mentioned it before, around how to manage anxiety, but it's a workbook. So we're working on that. I don't know when it's going to be released. I can't tell you when it's going to be released, because I'm holding up the show. Surprise, surprise. I'm sure any of you who tune in regularly will not be surprised to know that I'm the one that is, I won't say dragging my heels. What I'll say is that I'm just, I may have, I may need to give more time. I need to do some more on it. So when it comes, I will let you know. But I'm excited about getting it, because this is one of the ways I see that hopefully people will be able to get some skills that they can start to use, is through books that they can use on a regular basis. So I'll let you know more. I have a lot of stuff that I have to edit just sitting just here beside me. So that's going to be that. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. And Maria, hello to you. Hi, Caitlin. You made it. Excellent. And Josephine, good evening. It's good evening to you. I found it sound like the two Ronnies for any of you older people who remember the two Ronnies. Right, we've got two questions today. I'm going to jump straight in. I have two sons, 12 and 10. I am completely at my wits' end. They literally hate each other. They are constantly fighting and arguing, and neither of them takes any responsibility and just blames the other one for starting it. I know sibling rivalry is a normal thing, but myself and my husband are now getting into disagreements as we fall on different sides of different arguments. We are living in a not very happy house. Have you any suggestions on how we can get them to even just ignore each other, as that would be a massive first step forward? Thank you. Now, just before I carry on, I'm going to just change the sound so that hopefully you guys don't have any issues with the sound, because I meant to do this beforehand and I didn't. So hopefully you can all hear me okay still. Can I get a thumbs up or something, a notification from somebody in the chat that you can hear me all right? So with this lady, we have two young lads who are starting to get into that messy stage where they're getting a bit stronger, a little bit bigger, a little bit more boisterous, and it seems like they hate each other, and maybe they do. Kathy, thank you for that. The sound's fine. That's good. Yeah, so you're right. Sibling rivalry is a normal thing that occurs and happens in a lot of houses that they just don't get on as well as you would hope, and there will be fighting and arguing, and you will probably hear that you prefer the other one to them, and then vice versa, and it's a back and forth. But the challenging piece, I think, in this is that now you and your husband are starting to have disagreements because one of you thinks the other one is wrong, or not, like the children are wrong. So that's the piece that is saying to me that, okay, there's a piece of work here to be done. So the very first thing I would suggest is that yourself and your husband sit down and you have a conversation and you go through essentially a parenting plan where you look at what are the issues we have here, and let's be specific about it, because we can just say, well, they just hate each other, but the chances are they get along maybe sometimes. So is there any points that are the real trigger points? Is bedtime a trigger point? Is when they get home from school a trigger point? Is a Saturday afternoon a trigger point? Where are the real trigger points that you can see between them that tend to set them off? Because I would suspect that there is a bit of a pattern that occurs. So look to try and figure out what that pattern is, and check in with you and your husband and say, look, we can't be arguing over this, right? And what happens is none of us win. We all lose out because we're all arguing. So let's just make a commitment to try and not argue with each other. And then we can take that step back and have a conversation if we don't agree with each other, but have an adult to adult conversation where we can say, look, I think this is the situation, and I think this is the situation. Where can we find the common ground? Now, I know that's easier said than done, but if you can get into a routine of practicing it, it will become the default more often than not. So that way you're clearing the slate for the both of you, because you both have the same goal. You want everyone to be okay. You want the household to run smoothly. You want everyone to be fine. So that's your foundation. So you build from that. And then you look at the trigger points. What are the things? And then try and focus on changing one thing. So if you find that a Saturday afternoon is when one is playing with one thing and the other one wants to play with it, and then it all kicks off, well, then you look at going, well, okay, let's look at a boundary around this, because you two clearly are struggling to navigate this together. So if it is over the console, right, well, you can have it from this time to this time, and you can have it from this time to this time. And if there's any arguments, neither of you will have it. And just focus on that one piece, because what you would love, I'm assuming, is that they would get on together and, picture perfect siblings, holding hands, running down the beach. But that's not going to happen. And you don't need to change things straight away. Like, they are 10 and 12. You still have at least 6 more years of them probably being in the house together. So you have the time to try and get them closer together so that they're not arguing as much. So just focus on one, pick one trigger point, plan out with your husband, okay, this is how we're going to handle it. These are the consequences we're going to put in place if that boundary is broken. So you're both clear what the boundary is and you both know when the consequences need to go in, because sometimes there can be one person who will go, well, I'll hold back, I won't jump in just yet. And the other person's go, no, let's jump in straight away. And that's where the conflict can happen between you two. So pick one thing and work on it, plan it out, and then be clear what the consequences are. Be clear what the escalation consequence is. So what happens if they don't go along with it? And then both of you back each other up to put it in place and be consistent over a couple of weeks. And then what you'll probably find is that over 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, that no longer becomes an issue because the kids are way more adaptable than adults. So they will slip into okay, this is the way it is. And them two are being consistent about it. So we won't do it anymore. Then you both sit down again and pick the next thing you want to change. Look for the next trigger point. It could be borrowing clothes. It could be, at homework time. It could be anything. And pick one and go through the same process. What is it about this that we want to change? Why is it causing us frustration? What are we going to do about it? And then these are the consequences to the boundary. And we both put it into practice. And we have to be consistent with it. And you keep changing one by one. And see how that goes. Because I suspect it will take a little bit of the pressure off. And you guys will actually start to work together on, and you're not going to argue as much. Maria, cracking win for Liverpool at the weekend. Yes, absolutely. How's the weather in Ireland? It is very blustery. It feels a bit like the calm before the storm, so I think it's all going to kick off. Caitlin, hopefully not as bad as here. All I need is an umbrella and I can fly off Mary Poppins style. Yeah, we've had moments like that. Maria, my oldest daughter got her first Valentine's Day card on Monday. She isn't happy that me and Caitlin are winding her up. Don't wind her up, the poor wee thing. Isn't it lovely that she got her first Valentine's card? Don't be winding her up. Be nice to her. Okay, second question. My 18-year-old son is about to do his leaving certificate and is really stressed. So again, just to explain for those people not in Ireland, the leaving certificate is the equivalent of the A levels, or I can never remember what it is in the US. Kathy, maybe you'll help me out. Basically it's the state exams that you do before you go to university. So my 18-year-old son is about to do his leaving certificate and is really stressed, which is understandable. He's working pretty hard, but he came to me last night and said that he doesn't know what he's doing all this for. He said he feels lost and has no direction. He applied for university courses, but he said that none of them are really that interesting to him. He said he's worried that he'll just go to uni and waste his time and our money on something that he doesn't care about. I've told him that he doesn't need to worry about the money side of things, but I'm worried about him, as all of his friends seem to have a full career plan in place. Is there anything I can do to help him figure things out and get some sort of path for him? So anyone who knows me well will know that I would absolutely rejig and reevaluate the way that the education system in Ireland and probably most Western countries is run, because it's built on a model that's 300 years old of sit down, be quiet and regurgitate what you are told. And it focuses on English, maths, Irish, and while they are important, what I think is more important is teaching our children to look after their mental health, teaching our children resilience skills, teaching our children day-to-day skills so they can actually manage what life is actually, what's important about it, because most people aren't going to use algebra. I know algebra is important, but most people aren't going to use it on a day-to-day. But the amount of people I've worked with who cannot handle stresses, the amount of people I've worked with who cannot cook for themselves, the amount of people who have no sense of nutrition and exercise and the importance and the impact that it has on us. So I would absolutely look at changing that. But the system is the system. And unfortunately, the system here in Ireland, and probably similar in most Western countries, is you need to do as well as you can in these exams. Otherwise, you will not get into university. And if you don't get into university, guess what? Life is going to be hard. It's going to be horrible. And it's not going to be as good as it would be if you went to university, which is absolute shite. It doesn't mean that people who go to university have a crap life, and it doesn't mean that people who don't go to university have a lovely life, but it is not the be all and end all. Now, the system teaches and tells our kids and us that that is the case, that this is the be all and end all, but there has never been a better time in history to learn something new and to have different directions that you can go instead of just the straightest path, because sometimes the straightest path isn't the best path for us in the long run. So what I would suggest is that you sit down with your son and let him know it is absolutely okay that he doesn't know what he wants to do in university. And that all he needs to think about right now is the Leaving Cert and getting it finished and getting it done. And if he wants to take a year out to try and figure out what he wants to do with his life, that's okay. If he wants to go and work, if he doesn't want to go to university, that's okay too. He may change his mind in the future, but it is massive pressure to put on any teenager to know what they want to do for the rest of their lives, because who the hell knows that at 16, 17, 18 years of age? Most 20 or 30-year-olds don't know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. So what I'd suggest is you sit him down, you say to him, look, let's have a look at what we just have to do with university or with the Leaving Cert. And do you need any help with that in terms of managing stress? And that's when you can look at, okay, do we need to look at having breaks scheduled in where we take him away, take him out, send him off to spend time with his friends, where he is, working, but also having that downtime as well, because that's so important. And then start to look at his ways of managing it and look up the ABC model. It's a really effective tool. If you can't find it, email me and I'll send you a copy of it. It comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's really, really handy in terms of helping us work through getting the head back in control of the emotion, because the emotion sometimes isn't logical because it's emotion. So I would suggest that. And then what you can do is you can tell him that it's all right to try things. And again, like I said, this is the beauty of it. Look at what he's interested in. Now, he might say, all I'm interested in is playing on my console. Okay, would you like to get into games development? No. Okay, that's fine. Would you like to get into website design? No, that's okay. Do you want to just work or travel and just figure things out? Because that's okay too. And that's just as important as any university course. And then he can start to look at doing little courses instead of committing to a 3 or a 4 or a 5-year degree program where he's not even sure. Don't do that. Just tell him that doesn't have to be done. Yes, you've applied for these courses, but you can turn them all down. And maybe what you need to do is just try a course that is a 3-month, a 6-month introductory course to anything. It's not going to be a huge expense. There's not going to be a massive amount of pressure. It's done probably in his own time, and it is him just testing things out, dipping his toe in the water, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. Now, that doesn't mean that you accept it, that he's just going to sit around playing his console all day while you're off working and giving him money. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he may not, because he doesn't know what he wants to do, there is no point in him going to university and picking something that he probably doesn't want to do in the first place. Now, he might be a bit interested and he might say, well, look, I wouldn't mind giving it a go. So I've gone into this course. Can I just see how I get on? Absolutely see how you get on. Give it a go. And if you need to drop out, Okay, we'll reassess things after the first 3 months, 6 months, year, but as long as you give it a bit of a go and you don't just drop out after 2 or 3 weeks because you haven't really got a proper understanding of the course and the content. So there will be a commitment element to it, but let's take the pressure off everybody. You don't have to know. He doesn't have to know. With any path we start out on, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, that's okay too. We can just try something different. So look at the immediate. Let's just focus on the Leaving Cert. What can we do to support you to take that little bit of pressure off, if anything? And if they need a counselor or a therapist or a coach, look into it, because it is worth it. And sometimes at that age, they don't want to worry you, so they won't tell you everything. Plus, you're their parents and you know nothing because you were never a teenager yourself. So get them the support if they need it. And that's where they might build the skills to start to explore things. I do it a lot with people at that age where I'm looking at, okay, what things interest you? If it's sports, okay. Do you want to do a sports podcast? Do you want to write about sports? Do you want to do sports science? And you just start to build those things up to start to see, and you see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. But there are so many options for them to do things. And sometimes it's about starting from the interest, working out. So somebody who might be interested in sport and they start writing for sport might go, actually, I really enjoy writing full time, full stop. I might go and do journalism. I might do a creative writing course. I might write a book. Who knows? But at least you're trying something. And it's all right to change your mind. And then tell him he doesn't have to go to university on a course that he's not sure of. He can work, he can take a year out, he can go traveling, and if that's okay with you. But he's better off trying little things, little courses, and seeing, rather than doing a big one, if he's that worried about it. And hopefully that'll take a bit of pressure off. Let me know how he gets on, please. Kathy, I think it's the SATs. Correct, it's the SATs. Thank you. Josephine, my 17-year-old is stressing about her Leaving Cert and future and is studying the benefits of moving country because she doesn't think she has a future here. Look, I completely get that. I did it. Not because I didn't think I had a future there, but because I didn't do well enough to get into any of the courses I'd applied for. So maybe moving country will be something positive because of the life experience. Maybe it won't. She might be gone for a month and then go, no, I'm coming back. But it's about getting it back to the here and now. The Leaving Cert and studying now is, the more study you do now, the better you're going to do in the Leaving Cert. The better you do in the Leaving Cert, the better chance you have of getting into a course that you might like. The better chance you have to get into a course you might like, the better chance you might have to build a career that you might like. But if that doesn't happen, that's okay. You don't need to know right now, just bring it right back to the here and now. Kathy, nearly 40 and still don't know what I want to do, even with a degree in psychology. Absolutely. And the beauty is, you can change your mind. I know so many people in their 50s who've changed their career and are happier than ever, because we live longer, and the chances are someone who's 50 has nearly the same amount of time, barring something horrible happening, but has nearly the same amount of time on this planet that they've had already. And look at what we've just done in those first 50 years. So let's take the pressure off and look at, let's just give something a go. And Kathy, I hope you figure out very soon. If you need a coach, give me a shout. Figure out very soon what you'd like to do. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for the comments and everyone's interaction. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next time. Look after yourself.